Hello YouTube and welcome back. Today we're going to change the oil in a 2015 Yukon Denali XL. This has the 6.2 liter V8 engine, the Gen 5 motor, otherwise known as the L86. This engine takes 8 quarts of 0W20 full synthetic motor oil. What I'm going to use here today is Valvoline full synthetic advanced oil, and I'm also going to use a Fram Extra Guard pH 10575 filter. The other tools you need today are going to be a ratchet and a 15mm socket to remove the drain plug. You may also need an extension. You can use a generic oil filter wrench, or you can use the one that's specifically designed for this size oil filter. I don't know the exact size of it, but if you're ever in question and you need to buy one, you can always take the filter out of the box at the store, put it inside the filter, and make sure it fits. If it fits, it's the right one. I prefer the generic style wrench because it works on all different styles. The other tools you're going to need are going to be ramps or jack stands. I prefer ramps because they feel a little bit more safer, a little bit more sturdy, and you can get under the car nice and easy with those. I'm also going to use a drain pan, and I'm going to use a couple of different funnels, and you'll see why I need 2 different types of funnels to get into this engine. And then you might also want a creeper as well to roll underneath the car. So I'm going to come back in a second after I get this up on the stands. I'm going to roll it up there, and then we'll get under the car and we'll get to work. Now that we're under the car, you can see that this will be the oil pan drain plug. You're going to put a 15mm socket on that plug. Make sure that you have enough leverage, and make sure you have it in reverse, and you can back that out. Start doing that. Nice and easy. It shouldn't be too tight. And get your drain pan underneath it. As you release the plug, you may have to move the pan in order to catch the oil as it comes out, because it's at an angle. So let's try to do that. And it should be nice and warm. You may need to wear gloves. Always make sure to get your oil up to operating temperature. I just drove this vehicle about 20 miles for a trip, so it's nice and warm. This plug is very hot. As this comes out, it's going to come out at an angle, so just get ready to catch it and move the pan as needed. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, should be loose now. Here we go. Okay, just barely got it. Made a little bit of a mess, but no big deal. I'll clean that up. Alright, let that go for about until it stops running. It's going to drip for quite some time. Once it's done dripping, we should be able to pull the filter out. Alright, while the oil's draining, I'm going to show you a little trick I like to do. I like to take the box that the oil filter came in. You can see right here. I'll put the oil filter to the side. I like to get about 3 or 4 little sections of paper towel. This is 4 sections. I'll fold it up into 4 pieces, overlap it, put it down like this so it's a nice little square. Four pieces folded end over end. I stuff that into the box so that there's a nice little section of paper towel in there. That way when the old filter comes out, I can put that in here and it won't drain and make a nice nasty mess all over the place. And that's where I like to store my old filter after I've drained out all the oil that I can get out of it. So now let's go into the car and let's get the old filter out. Alright, most of the oil is drained out of the oil pan. Now it's time to get the filter off. I'm going to use this generic wrench made by Hypertough, which is sold at Walmart. You can pick these up for about $8, so I highly recommend those over any of the alternatives because you can use these for basically any type of oil filter. Grab the filter and lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, so obviously you're going to turn left. You're going to get it to where it just starts to break loose, and then you'll see oil will be able to run from the sides. Once that runs a little bit, and you're able to spin it by hand, you get most of the oil out before you get your hand up there and get it all gross and covered by oil. And if you keep your filter box from the new filter by your side with the paper towels in there, once you get this out to drain, you should be able to put your old filter in there without creating a mess. And then let the old filter drain for a little bit into the pan. And it'll stop running pretty quick. Once it's done, put it in the box. Here's the old box, and remember it has paper towels already in it. Put it in the box, and we're good to go. Once the old filter is out of the way, and it is now time to clean things up. So I take a fresh paper towel, wipe up the old oil, get it out of the way. On the chassis, on the frame, everywhere you can. It's obviously still going to be running from the pan just a little bit, as well as where the oil filter was. So then I take the plug and I make sure it's cleaned up. I inspect the threads. If the threads look good, and it should go in all the way nice and easy, then I can install the drain plug. And the drain plug should go nice and easy all the way in by hand, just like that. If there's any sort of messed up threads or anything like that, you can probably be just fine threading it in with your wrench. If it's too hard to get it in, you might want to try to chase it with a thread chaser. So you can look those up, get a thread chaser online. If it's really, really bad and someone has changed your oil before you and the threads are gummed up too bad to get the bolt in, then you might need to look up something like a helicoil where you can repair the threads. That's another video. If you're interested in something like that, please let me know and I can do something like that for you as well. So at this point we can tighten up the drain plug. For tightening the drain plug, you don't want to go too tight. I don't even recommend looking up the torque specs on it, but you want to put your wrench on tight and then just give it a good snug like so, and you're good to go. Just make sure it's not leaking anymore. Clean up the oil around it, and you'll be fine. And then it's time to get the new oil filter, and we'll install that. I'll take you outside from under the car and we can start that process. All right, first things first, we have our new oil filter. It's upside down, obviously. It's the PH 10575 Fram Extra Guard. Anything in the Fram flavor of a 10575 will work just fine for this vehicle. Turn it upside down. I take a new bottle of oil. Remember, it's 0W20 for this oil, for this vehicle. You're going to open that up. You're going to fill that very slowly with the new oil. You're going to read a lot of mixed stories online about what to do with these filters. Filling the filter is not a requirement. You don't have to fill the filter. Some people will say do not fill the filter. Some people will insist that you do fill the filter. Either way, at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. I've been changing oil for 25 plus years now, and I've never had an issue whether I filled the filter or not filled the filter beforehand. The most important thing you'll see about changing an oil filter is whether or not you lube the gasket on the top of the filter. And from what I've seen is, as long as the engine is used, meaning you've emptied the oil and now putting a new filter back on, there's enough oil around that sealing surface that you do not need to lube that surface again. But you can choose to lube it or not. And if you do want to lube it, you get your finger in the new oil, rub it around that gasket until it's covered with new fresh oil, and now it's nice and slick and ready to go back on. If you don't want to do that, and it's not a brand new engine build, then don't do it. It doesn't matter. There's enough oil on that surface that you should be just fine without doing it. The other aspect of things is if you fill the filter beforehand or not, doesn't really matter. I choose to do it just because old habit. But you don't have to do it either. Some people will say don't do it because if you do fill the filter, you have a chance of getting debris inside of the filter that doesn't belong, and that's the piece of that's where the oil that is clean that comes out into the engine goes, so it has not been filtered by the filter. So I filled it, I lubed it, we're ready to go. Alright, we have our fresh filter full of oil, nice and lubed. If you can see this, you can note that the surface where the oil filter will mount to already has oil on it. You don't have to lube the filter to get it to seal. This was a brand new engine. I'm putting a filter on for the first time. There's no oil there. Therefore, you would have to put oil between the surface to make it seal. So spin it on by hand. This engine design, the LT engine, the Gen 5 GM engine, has plenty of room between the oil pan and your hand where you can put your hand all the way around the filter. You do not need to put a wrench on the filter to tighten it. If you have an LS engine, a Gen 4 or a Gen 3 engine, there's not enough room to put your hand around the filter to tighten it all the way. Therefore, you need to put a wrench on it and give it an extra turn. This, you can see, my hand is fitting all the way around it. I have plenty of grip to tighten it by hand, and it's tight enough by hand where it will never leak. I know that for sure because I have 132,000 miles on this engine and have never had a leak from the oil filter. An LS, on the other hand, you can get your hand about this far around it, about half of the filter, which is not enough grip to tighten the filter. Therefore, you need to put a wrench on it or something like that to give it an extra half turn or quarter turn just to get it tight enough to seal. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. I will help you understand it. Now it's time to go upstairs and let's put oil into the engine after we've drained it all and put the plug back in and put the new filter in. Now that we're up top, I'd like to do a couple of things to get oil in here. Number one, you'll notice that the oil fill cap is at a weird angle and it's very hard to get oil into the engine without spilling it all over the engine. But before I show you how to do that, what I'd like to show you is what to check for under the oil cap to make sure that there's no liquid or oil or water residue inside of the oil. If there's water residue inside the oil, you might have an issue such as a head gasket that has gone bad, or you might have an issue such as you have not driven the car enough to evaporate all of the water from the oil. And you want to make sure that all the water is evaporated from the oil to make sure that the engine is heated up properly before you change it. So if you look inside the cap, you'll notice that the inside of the cap is nice and clean. It's dry. If there was a milky substance in there, it's the first sign that you have coolant or water inside of the oiling system, and that is a sign that things are bad. That's what you look at first. As long as it's dry and brown or looks like an oily residue, you're good to go. So let's move this out of the way. I'm going to set it down here in the auxiliary battery tray, and I'm going to show you my funnel setup. Number one, I take a long skinny funnel. I put it in like this with a nice seal. Then I take a giant funnel that I can put on top of that, and that is where I pour the oil into. Now while I'm pouring the oil into the top, I'll also take note around the edge at the base to make sure that no oil is pouring over the valve cover onto the headers, onto the suspension, anywhere outside of the engine, to make sure that all the oil is getting into the car. So with these types of engines, there's no easy way to get the oil in. A Gen 5 GM engine needs you to do something like this to get the oil in there without spilling it everywhere, and you're going to go nice and slow. Our first 5 quarts is in there. Now we need 3 more quarts. Let's get a fresh bottle, and we will try to measure off 3 quarts from here. I'll show you a nice little trick I use to make sure I only put 3 quarts in. We're getting close. We're about 2.5, and then I'm going to show you over here. I found a nice flat surface. Typically a garage is one of the flattest surfaces you have. So I put my bottle on the flat surface of the garage, and I look at it on the side. On the side of the bottle, you'll see you have quarts on the right, liters on the left. So you can see the number 2 right here. Once I get down to that line where the 2 is, I know I have 2 quarts left. You can see right here, I'm above 2.5 quarts of oil. You can see that dark line, that represents where the oil is. If I shake it up, you can see there's oil in there. That's what's moving inside there. So once I get down to that line, I know I have 2 quarts left. 3 plus 5 is 8. That's all I need. So let's get back to business and make sure we get it down to that 2 quart level. Almost there. A little bit more. And that should be good. Let's check it out. Perfect enough. All right. Now it's time to take the filter out, or not the filter, the funnel. Take the funnels out since they're still dripping oil. Put those over here in the mulch so they don't make a mess on my driveway. Just like that. Get the oil cap, put that on, click it, make sure it's nice and tight, and we're done. Okay, the last thing you can do is check the oil fill level. So I'll grab the dipstick, pull it out. First things first, what we do is we wipe it off. Wipe off the dipstick to make sure that there's no oil residue on it. You'll see once it's clean, there are 2 lines here. If you see the hash marks, you'll see at the bottom of the hash mark, there's a dot. That's the low line. At the top of the hash mark is the fill, the full line when it's hot. It should be hot right now. The oil is not hot, but the engine is warm. So it should be somewhere in between here, the bottom and the top. So let's put it in here now that it's dry, and let's pull it back out and see where we end up. Push it all the way down to the bottom to where the gasket touches the bottom. Pull it out, and then we're going to look at the fill stick, the dipstick, and you can see the oil is right there, almost up to the top. So it's plenty full and it's at the appropriate amount. We're good to go. This engine oil has been changed. Alright, I hope you liked this video. If this was helpful to you, please like and subscribe. Make a comment if you have any questions about how to change your oil, or about what type of oil or filter to put in your car. I will help you with that as well. Hopefully this teaches you how to maintain your car and do it for much less than you could do at the dealership. Like I said earlier, an engine oil and filter change at a regular place like Walmart, if you did full synthetic for 8 quarts, may cost you as much as $100. But if you do it yourself, you can save as much as $60 to $70 on an oil change. So might as well do it yourself. For the 15 minutes it took for me to do this, it was well worth it. Hope you like this, and if you do, again, like and subscribe and follow me for more content. Thanks and have a great day.